Welcome to my channel. Sit back and listen to the best true crime stories. Let's go. Is it really possible to commit a murder, get caught on camera, and get away without leaving a trace? Apparently, yes. The story of Missy Bevers is proof of that. Location: Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas, United States. April 2016. Terry Bevers, a fitness trainer, woke up very early. She had a group waiting for her that morning for a fitness class. Missy's house was a half-hour drive from the church. The woman pulled up to the building by 4:20 a.m. and parked her 2012 Ford F-150 at the southwest entrance under the awning. This early arrival was due to the fact that she wanted to prepare for the training session by dropping off the necessary equipment and getting the room ready. It rained from late afternoon until morning, and there was no opportunity to practice outdoors, but Missy warned everyone in advance that she would not cancel the training and invited the participants to move under the roof of the church. The announcement was public, the day before she posted a post on her FB page. Let me tell you a little about her. Terry Bevers was born on August 9, 1970 in Graham, Texas. At first she worked as a high school physical education teacher. Meeting Missy and her future husband Brandon was planned by his relatives. His mother met Missy earlier and, wanting to put a shy and silent son in good hands, set up their date. The young people liked each other and soon married. Brandon's parents after some time divorced and moved to different cities, but before and after Missy and Marisha very warmly communicated and often saw each other. In 2001, their first daughter Hanny was born, 2 years later Ellie, and another 4 years later Sarah. For a while, Terry devoted herself to her family, but as the girls grew older, she realized that she didn't want to continue to be a domestic nestmate and, after training, began working as a fitness trainer in the fitness community Camp Gladiator. Participants gathered in parking lots, church grounds, and soccer fields and worked on their endurance and agility, building physical strength and improving their health. Her husband helped her a little at first, but after realizing that this was not a temporary bliss, he gradually withdrew. Missy made it clear to him that now she wanted to spend more time on another favorite activity, and he would have to accept it. Missy is described as kind, compassionate, and very driven. She adored her daughters, always came to the aid of her loved ones, and had many friends in and out of town. By 5 a.m., the participants began to arrive at the church. The man who arrived first was a newcomer. He saw the coach truck parked near the front door, the door covered, but was too shy to go inside first and decided to wait for someone else, sitting in a car nearby. Background: Missy had 2 early birds in her Gladiator class who often arrived at almost the same time as her and helped her with her training. But that morning, one decided to skip class and sleep in, and the other had a flat tire on the way. Then 4 students arrived at once. They discovered Mission's dead body and called 911 at 5:06 a.m., reporting that the trainer was lying inside, covered in blood, on shards of glass and unresponsive to anything. They described Mission's injuries: stab wounds to her head and a traumatized chest. They also called her spouse, who rushed into town by 3 p.m. By the time the ambulance arrived at the church building, Missy was no longer breathing. This murder shook the entire state and caused a wide public outcry. A woman who, as it seemed at first glance, had no enemies, was murdered in the most brutal way. The first press conference was given a few hours later. Police Chief Carl Smith told the press that Missy Bevers had been murdered, and the church showed signs of a break-in. The first theory was a robbery and Missy was caught, hot-handed. With Brandon, journalists managed to talk to the same day. He was caught right after he visited the police station. But the man was clearly dumbfounded by what happened and could not tell anything. The most interesting thing is this: even now many people do not know how Missy was killed. It was originally thought that she was hammered to death by an unidentified man. Some sources slipped in that Missy had been shot. At the first press conference, when asked by a reporter about the cause of death, the chief made it clear that they would not release that information. Outdoor surveillance cameras were not working that day, but the internal ones recorded valuable information. And what information? The alleged murderer of Missy Bevers. However, the joy was short-lived and no one has been charged yet. Why not? I suggest you watch the very video that was uploaded to the internet. Cameras captured the perpetrator in the church at about 4:30 in the morning. He was first captured by the cameras at 3:50 a.m., but the cameras were set up in the hallway and he got in through the back door of the kitchen area by breaking a glass insert. That's where he may have been for some time. Why he broke the glass is not clear. The locks on the front doors were purely symbolic and could be opened with a simple screwdriver, which, as it turned out, the criminal did later. This was evidenced by the marks on the door leaf. By the way, there was no alarm system in the building. Background: there were several windows in the kitchen. They were located high enough and, as the police believe, the criminal could not physically climb through them. However, they were all broken. The perpetrator could have been checking to see if there was an alarm system. His height was found to be between 150 and 170 centimeters. He was supposedly dressed in a tactical uniform, a black suit with the word police on the back, a black helmet with a flashlight and a mask underneath, face shields, rough gloves, and black boots. In his hands, he carried something resembling a hammer. His skin was, as we were able to ascertain, white. Many people are struck by the peculiarity of his gait. Firstly, it seems that his shoes are too big for him. Secondly, he's got a definite tweak in his right foot. There are many versions: old injury, prosthesis, sciatica, or something else. We can only guess. Thirdly, it was as if his feet were turned upside down, these duck's feet. This is usually observed in overweight people due to excessive load on the hip bones. In the first shots, he has nothing in his hands, then a hammer appears, with which he periodically bangs on the walls and doors. As investigators found out, the man in uniform went around the perimeter of the church, touching and trying to open all the doors in a row. He left the doors open after himself, i.e., he did not try to lie low or hide. He was not disturbed by the noise he was making. He is careless and obviously calm. He is not in a hurry. He walks around the premises in a masterly manner. On April 19th, the police make a new official statement, but this time through Assistant Chief Kevin Johnson. Its essence is as follows. The initial version that it was a specific person was recognized as wrong. It was announced that either a man or a woman could be hiding under the costume. The same day, Brandon Bevers spoke to reporters again, promising to give them all a final and as complete an interview as he could. He makes some suggestions about the perpetrator's appearance. For example, points to his motorcycle boots, but what kind of helmet on his head, it is not clear to him at all. That the jacket, indeed, very similar to the police, but the pants are more like sports. Brandon suggested that the man had simply put together clothes that looked as much like police gear as possible to create a similar image. He leaned toward the robbery version, suggesting that the perpetrator killed Missy out of surprise. He didn't expect to see her there so early, and then just didn't have time to get anything out of her car because he noticed other people on the street. The cops, by the way, said that you can only buy real police clothes with a special permit from the department. Background: the Texas Rangers are the primary unit within the Texas Department of Public Safety that investigates criminal offenses, captures wanted criminals, restores public order, and assists local police authorities and other police functions. Based in Austin. On April 22nd, a second major press conference was announced by the police department. Addressing the public, the assistant chief asked to review the video again properly, analyze the behavior of the man in uniform, compare his gait with his acquaintances, and if there were any suspicions, to contact the police. A couple of days later, the owner of the SWFA Cut Doors store, which was located near the church, came to the police. He brought a video recording from an outdoor surveillance camera, which seemed suspicious to him. As it turned out, that same night, a few hours before Missy's murder, a car drove up to the store from the side of the church and began to drive around the site in the rain, turning its headlights on and off and stopping periodically. Car model: 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima. The license plate number, alas, we could not find out. The police noticed an oval emblem above the rear bumper, which could not be identified due to the blurriness of the video. The driver of the car was asked to respond, but he did not. The search was also unsuccessful. As it turned out later, there was no bumper sticker at all. In the full video, it is perfectly visible that it is either a reflection or a shadow of the oval SWFA sign, which is somewhat to the side of the building. However, it only became known by December 2016, and before that time this distinctive feature was actively speculated in the press. The police department announced a $10,000 reward for information that could help catch the perpetrator. That's the same reward the store owner offered. The robbery version was deflated almost immediately. From the church, nothing was missing, as well as things in Missy's car remained intact. And there was a lot to take. A cell phone, a player, a wallet with banknotes, after all, an expensive wedding ring on her finger. I'll mention one more thing. In Missy's car was left her gun, which she carried with her for self-defense. The version of murder motivated by personal animosity or jealousy was considered very carefully. The first under suspicion was, of course, Missy's husband Brandon Bevers. As it turned out a little later, the relationship between the spouses by that time was far from ideal. This was known to their parents, in particular Brandon's father, Randy, quite disapproving of his daughter-in-law. In addition to financial holes in the family budget, a more intimate sphere was also touched upon. Brandon believed that his wife had been unfaithful to him. Direct questions out of respect for the experience of journalists did not ask him, but he himself unequivocally made it clear that their couple recently had to, like many, to go through difficult tests as a spiritual and moral order, but they were able to agree on everything and decided not to throw under the tail 18 years of life together. And as it later turned out, he also pointed the police to two men whom he suspected of flirting with his wife. On the morning of the murder, he had a solid alibi. The day before, he flew to the town of Biloxi, Mississippi on the Gulf Coast. It was the site of an annual fishing trip that attracted amateur anglers from all over the state. He rented a boat on the spot. As evidenced by rent checks, there are testimonies not only from similar fishermen, but also from the boat owner himself. Some commentators have suggested that Brandon might have used the services of a private plane, since there was a private airport not far from the murder scene. Pay, fly in, kill, and fly back. But his alibi was corroborated by too many people for this theory to be taken seriously. Background: the last days of Missy's life went like this. A few days before the murder, namely on April 14th, Missy went to Austin. There were in full swing preparations for the Camp Gladiators. The program there was expected to be great. Anyone could settle there and train for a month under the watchful eye of numerous trainers, who, in turn, exchanged experiences. Missy published a post on her FB page asking for prayers for her husband, who was facing some sort of surgical procedure. He was taken to the hospital by his mother, as Missy was not back in town yet. Missy returned home in the afternoon, going to bed early since she had to get up before her workout at 3:30 a.m. Before going to bed, she talked on the phone with her husband, who called her at about 10:30 in the evening. Missy's close friends kept and remain silent to this day. There is not a single interview or article in which anyone explicitly says, "Yes, she confessed to me," or "Yes, she was an infatuated person and could afford to." Missy's alleged lover was first identified as her co-worker, trainer A.J. Tucker. He taught a self-defense class and often crossed paths with Missy at one and other coaches' meetings and social classes. His wife Courtney was very similar in physique to the man in uniform, average height and very full. In addition, shortly before the incident had undergone surgery on her leg, due to which she limped noticeably. The wife was jealous of her handsome husband to his slender colleague and tried to solve the problem by simply killing the latter. Such cases are not few, but in this case all suspicion of the woman was cleared after scrutiny. It was suggested that Missy was dating a police officer who, offended by the rejection, thus decided to take revenge on his mistress. There was a version that this could be the revenge of a cheating wife, using tactical uniforms and a hammer. Someone in all seriousness believes that the criminal is also pregnant, so she is so full and so peculiarly moves. Anyway, having accessed Missy's correspondence on social networks, namely LinkedIn, the police got some information. Apparently, the woman was not averse to flirtation and flirting on social media. To quote the source, the correspondences gradually became more and more intimate and meetings were planned. Missy's father-in-law, Randy Bevers, is still considered the culprit by a great many. The man was 64 years old at the time of the tragedy, and his build and gait are very similar to that of the perpetrator. They are about the same height. Compare them. And then there's this one here where someone tries to analyze the movements of both father and son literally frame by frame. And in this video, Brandon says that his father has ankylosing spondylitis, a chronic joint disease that causes joints to fuse and then ossify. This is what his son was pointing out when he said that his father could not tilt his head the way the man in black did in the video at the Dutch door. Regarding Randy's absence, police determined the following. On April 17th, he and his wife traveled to Oceanside, California. They left in their trailer. The information is confirmed, first, by the location of the phone signal, and second, by witnesses who spoke to the couple. Their joint photo with their spouse was posted on social networks at Buddies. BTW. Many people are suspicious of the fact that both men, both spouse and father-in-law, were absent that morning. Allegedly, this crazy coincidence is not a coincidence at all, but a specially modeled situation in which both remain clean. But what many people don't realize is that the in-laws, for example, didn't live in the same house as Missy and son. They lived nearby in Austin, a town in the same state. A few days after Missy's murder, Randy brought a woman's white shirt with traces of blood to the dry cleaners, a fact that, when it became known, turned many against him. The employees notified the police. The shirt was thoroughly examined. Forensics determined that the blood did not indeed belong to a human, but to a dog. A veterinarian called to testify confirmed that Randy and his wife had gone to him about injuries sustained by their pet Chihuahua in a street fight. In the meantime, Randy and Brandon saw fit to meet with reporters to explain the situation. In mid-May, police announced that all the people on the first suspect list had been screened and released in peace. Their phone numbers were labeled target numbers in the warrant. They included the husband, in-laws, a coach and his wife, and some family friends. Later, another suspect came forward. His name was Bobby Wayne Henry, and he periodically moonlighted as a security guard at events at the same church. He also attended Missy's funeral. This character is particularly noteworthy. He was a police officer for several years, but was suspended in 1996 due to allegations of molestation and attempted rape by his former mother-in-law. And a few years earlier, his half-sister had accused him of the same thing. Bobby didn't go to jail, but he couldn't work as a police officer anymore. This man apparently had a vivid imagination. He liked to tell others that he had once served in the U.S. Navy, that his favorite girl was a police officer and was killed in the line of duty while catching a dangerous criminal. The police checked his house. They found nothing to link him to Missy's murder, but they did discover that he was into child pornography. He had a car similar in appearance to the one the police were looking for information about. He is just as heavy, his gait is similar. He had an alibi for the day of the murder, which his spouse confirmed. And only his spouse, by the way. P.S. Missy was buried on a clear Saturday afternoon. The civil funeral service was very well attended. The minister Gary Morgan spoke of Missy with great warmth, of her life and family, her love for her daughters and her students, her integrity and great vitality. He ended his presentation with the following words, "God is love." Missy's death did not happen because God turned away from her, but because the man who raised his hand against her turned away from the light and chose darkness and terror. Do not let anger take possession of your hearts. Do not hold vengeance in them. Do not be like the lost, but seek truth and pursue justice. Always seek and always pursue. Missy's first mother-in-law, Marisha, posted 2 letters on her Facebook page, one 2 and the other 3 weeks after Missy's funeral. In those letters, she addressed the perpetrator, urging him to turn himself in to the police and told him how much Missy's daughters love and still wait for their mother. Right here, a 5K race was organized in Missy's memory, with money raised going to a local club for young athletes. The cause she loved so much lives on, but the perpetrator, unfortunately, has not been found to this day.